this evening, and we are about to start speaking about Ghostbusters Afterlife.
When you said Ghostbusters there, the Busters kind of felt like questionable.
Busters? Busters?
Yeah. And
that
Ghostbusters. That sums up the film rather well.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters? Afterlife?
Afterlife?
Life after? Yeah. Strange. Yes, this is the collaboration between Ricky Gervais and Ghostbusters. Available now. Of course, I'm having a little joke there.
Of course.
Based on because Ricky Gervais has a series on Netflix called Afterlife.
I get it.
Well, you do, but the lovely listeners might not.
Of course.
Ghostbusters Afterlife, brand new. My phone just fell.
Oh, I've got it over here.
It's on the floor.
I've actually got it over here. You continue talking, I'll get it for you.
Don't look at it. Ghostbusters Afterlife, brand new Ghostbusters film, a continuation from the original 1984 film, completely ignoring Ghostbusters 2, completely ignoring the 2016 reboot/remake, and is directed by Jason Reitman, previous director of stuff like Juno and The Frontrunner. Two films that people consider to be generally quite decent.
Yeah, he's actually I do actually think he's a really great director when he gets to do the things that I think that he really knows and really wants to do.
Yeah.
Up in the Air as well. Really great films.
Mm-hmm. It's written by Jill Keenan, a first-time writing credit.
Another one this
one just for the writing of the script, not the screenplay. Mm-hmm. Jason Reitman was the head of the screenplay. They also credit Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis both in the film, in the credits, and on IMDb. Mm-hmm. However, that's only because they wrote the original 1984 film, and they used that as the basis for this film.
Yes.
So must credit them as pseudo-writers for that as well. Which is, and I will say this now, a bit of a sneaky move, mm-hmm. because in the credits of this film, and by that I mean the cinematic credits that continue on from the film, they actually just show Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis as the writers, mm-hmm. Making you think that this film was kind of written by them, or at least that's what I thought.
Or like a treatment,
A treatment was written by them of this film that was just never made. Mm-hmm. That is not the case. They just credit Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis as writers, but based on the fact that they wrote the original 1984 film, yes. Which is a sneaky move that I'm not too fond of, for reasons that I may get into later on. The film is starring Carrie Coon as Callie, Paul Rudd, sexiest man alive, according to Time Magazine.
Yes. People
magazine. I don't disagree. As Mr. Gruberson, which is one of the best names I've heard in film in quite some time. Finn Wolfhard as Trevor, McKenna Grace as Phoebe, and Logan Kim as Podcast, who is now our favourite character in any film. Podcast was great. I love him. Yes. I would die for Podcast.
Absolutely. I fully agree. He says one line in this, which I feel like will definitely go for our own podcast even. He speaks the truth.
He does speak the
truth. Yes.
He has a very funny moment in which he's interviewing someone who's like, so tell me your name, what you had for breakfast, which is what I do to Ryan to get his levels for the show.
Yeah. It was fairly scary.
It was scary. It was
That
funny.
was the scariest thing in this film.
So Ghostbusters Afterlife is the story of Phoebe being a young girl with her brother Trevor, who's played by Phil Wolfhard, and both their mum Callie, played by Carrie Coon, and they moved to a small town in an old house that was owned by their grandfather, and they moved there, and creepy stuff happens out of nowhere, and Paul Rudd is there, and a couple other people are there, and ghosts happen.
Yes.
And they have an Ecto-1 and proton packs, and Ghostbusters things happen, but that's all I can really say. I don't really want to give away too much. There are points of this film that I didn't know about, and I'm glad I didn't know about going into it. Don't really want to get into that too much. Mm-hmm. This is a direct continuation of the original 1984 film, and I mean direct, does not acknowledge 2, does not acknowledge the 2016 film at all.
Which is kind of surprising for 2, because I heard that it was going to also continue on from 2, but yeah, definitely this doesn't care for that one.
Does not care for that at all.
No.
Which is very interesting. So, the critical reception of this film has been pretty all over the place. In the last issue of Empire that I read, they give it 4 stars. Mm-hmm. Mark Kermode, one of our personal favourite reviewers, who reviews films on BBC Radio 5 Live, completely slated the film on his show, completely hates it. Other people say it's terrible, other people say it's great, some people say it's okay. It's all over the place. I haven't really seen much divisiveness in a film like this in some time. Mm-hmm. Personally, I didn't hate it.
I'm in the middle.
I am Jimmy Meets World on this film. I'm with you on that. I am in the middle. And I think that's because the film is pretty in the middle with it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
The first hour of this film isn't that great.
No, not at all.
It's pretty boring.
What I feel like is that the story that they set up in the first hour would actually be a very decent family drama if it got a payoff, but it never gets a payoff because the second hour of this film is Ghostbusters. So you get the setup of a movie that never finishes, but then you get Ghostbusters instead, and you're like, well, okay. Yeah.
It's kind of weird. There's some scenes that are just there and then completely disappear and never actually come up again, which is very strange to me. Characters are just kind of thrown at you, but not as if they're established. They're thrown at you with the intention of still developing them, which again is a bit weird and kind of feels awkward. Notably, Finn Wolfhard. Did not care for him at all in this film.
Not at all. And his storyline, you could cut it completely out. Yep. It takes up too much of this film.
McKenna Grace is great in it.
I loved her performance.
She's really
Phoebe.
good in this.
Yeah.
I want more of her. I say that, but we get plenty of her. Paul Rudd, also really funny in this because it's Paul Rudd and he makes anything like at least bearable. I want to see more of him in this. Carrie Coon was decent. She was okay.
Didn't get a lot to do,
Did not get a lot to do.
Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd, very good in this film. However, much like the story from the first hour, I feel like they get a very raw deal going into the second half. And that is something that I'm disappointed with. Especially Paul Rudd, because his setup as a character
is good.
Is really good, yeah.
But
it's really fun.
Turn him into Rick Moranis.
Basically
Rick Moranis from the original 1984 film, which I think is the biggest crux of this film, is how much it leans on the original. Now, not in the same fashion that something like The Force Awakens leans on A New Hope. The Force Awakens leans on A New Hope as in for a basis of the story to begin a new franchise. They use, you've got Starkiller Base and the Death Star, you've got person gets captured on the Death Star, you need to get them before we blow it up, yada yada. The story's done again. But it doesn't exactly lean too much on the film that you can't enjoy it on its own. This leans a little too much on the original, so much that I think if you didn't know anything about Ghostbusters at all and had never seen the original and watched it, you would go, huh?
Yeah.
A few things.
Like every other scene is like, oh, this, that, and the next thing that you really remember.
That is a reference. Or something I'm surprised they never referenced. It's a bit weird, some of the things they do in this film. Some things are like straight up just like the same again.
Yeah.
Other things are slightly different. Some things are new. I don't know. It is all over the place.
Well, that's it. Like the actual Ghostbusters element in this film, or let's even say the screenplay, I don't think there's anything original about this Ghostbusters stuff.
No, they just
throw it into another film and then rework that film to make that a Ghostbusters film. It doesn't it doesn't feel like a natural continuation in any sense.
It's a bit odd. In saying all that, though, that's not in any way to say the film is bad, because I don't think it's a bad film.
I was pleasantly surprised.
So was I. The film's fun, especially that second half, because it's Ghostbusters again, so of course it's fun. It's cheesy. It's very morbid with its humor. I think it's quite funny because of that. There's a pretty good scene involving little Stay Puft Marshmallow Men and Paul Rudd, which is particularly funny. I will also
reminiscent of Gremlins.
Very reminiscent of Gremlins, which I think is why I enjoyed it so much. I will give a shout out to the special effects in this film, heavily CG'd. However, they use practical effects.
And are they beautiful?
They are really good.
I absolutely love. There's one segment in which a certain ghost figure bashes through trash cans and like garbage and all that kind of stuff. And I honestly think it might be stop motion.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, that is beautiful." It
is.
I love it.
They really do some fun stuff with the practical effects as a callback to the original, which is fantastic. This film could easily, heavily rely on CG for absolutely everything, but they use practical effects for some stuff, which is really cool, and I really enjoy that. And that was a really nice surprise to see as well. I remember seeing that and going, "Oh, awesome practical effects!"
Yeah,
The actual ghost busting in this film is very action packed and quite fun. It's good. They use kids a lot for the ghost busting, and because you have McKenna Grace and Phil Wolfhard as the kids, so it's fun to watch that as well. And they're all good enough that I enjoy them. I enjoy watching them bust ghosts.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that not a ghost is busted until about an hour into this film.
Yeah. It takes a while.
It takes a while for things to get going. Too long for things to get going. Could easily be a 90-minute film. Or if you did want to make it 2 hours, could at least flesh out some later parts of the film, which I would love to see fleshed out.
Yeah.
That I don't want to spoil.
Yeah. To try and talk about them later parts, it feels like there's certain elements that just get brought up at the very end, and it really does feel like a skit comedy at times.
It does.
In which it's like, oh, we'll just throw these things in, and then now you've got to deal with them.
They do a very Deus Ex Machina kind of moment in which it's just like, oh, everything's fixed now because this happened. And it's like, oh, cool, I'm happy it happened because it was cool to see, but you could have done it a bit better.
Yeah.
So it's a little disappointing in that regard. But aside from all that, it was still like genuinely quite decent.
Yeah.
And if you want a nice fun like blockbuster film to watch to bide you over before stuff like Spider-Man comes out, then I mean there's no harm in seeing this. Especially
considering, well, before we went in to see it, we were like, we're not excited for this at all.
No.
And I don't know if it was because of it feels like a lack of marketing. There doesn't really seem to be a lot of like hype surrounding this film. So maybe we just went in not expecting much, and then we were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think so.
But I do think that there is genuine qualities. It's the second best Ghostbusters film. It's much better than Ghostbusters 2. Like, Ghostbusters 2, people are like, oh yeah, I'm a fan of Ghostbusters 2. It's rubbish. It's not good.
I will admit now, I've not seen the original Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 in some time.
Yeah.
I'd love to again, just to like get a feel for it as well. But both me and you have never seen the 2016 reboot.
No. That's something I will say as well. 2016 reboot, I actually do want to give it a chance to see it.
So do I.
But at that moment in time, the trailers, none of the jokes landed for me, and I didn't think that the trailers looked funny.
Nope.
But I feel like for Ghostbusters, the idea of SNL people, SNL celebrities, let's say, doing and making a Ghostbusters film, I think that might be the right way to do it. But that 2016 Ghostbusters just unfortunately went too heavily into the comedy. Yeah. Because the original Ghostbusters, sure, it's a comedy, but it is a film. It doesn't have to be on the level of a joke every single second. Yeah. The characters get fleshed out. Bill Murray's not always funny in the film. He's not even a nice guy. They make that his character. But from my knowledge and from the trailers, that's what the 2016 film did. But I would be very curious to see if they would ever try that again. Because I think that is the way to do like a very good Ghostbusters film.
That's something that we were talking about, is whether or not they would open it up for a sequel.
Yeah.
The film does leave it open-ended, I will say that. So there is room for a sequel. I don't think so.
I don't think,
I think they have run this tap incredibly dry.
Yeah.
I think even Afterlife was a stretch.
Yeah.
But you've done it. That's it. I don't think you should do any more. And if you are going to do any more, at least wait another 10 years and do some.
Yes, absolutely. The best Ghostbusters sequel was, without a doubt, the video game. Which is now, unfortunately, not canon. It was at one moment in time.
Really?
It was the third Ghostbusters-like story.
Wow.
But now it's no longer canon.
How dare they?
Yeah, how dare they?
How dare they?
The video game's great. Go play it if you haven't played it.
You could easily make a Left 4 Dead style game with Ghostbusters.
Yeah, you could do, yeah.
Where it's like 4-player co-op. That'd be good.
Yeah.
As a final note to this film, I think it does a really, really good job leaving a legacy for Harold Ramis.
Yes.
The unfortunate timely passing of him prior to the film's release. I think it was 2019.
No, it was years ago. I think it was like 2014.
Wow.
It's a few years back, yeah.
But Harold Ramis is done justice in this film, I will say that. And they do a good job with it. Possibly seen as maybe a bit, I don't know, distasteful in places, but I'm sure the film wouldn't be made without there at least being some yeah, you can do this.
Yeah,
From
I do believe that there was a comment that came out in which Jason Reitman, Jason Reitman asked the family of Harold Ramis and was like, "Is everything that we thingy in this script is this okay?" And he got the go ahead. So
yeah, that's
for
good
that,
then. That's
yes.
good then. That makes me happy. So yeah, Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's in cinemas now. If you have the time and can be bothered, you can definitely go check it out. It's worth a watch.
Yeah.
It's yeah.